My dearest friend, Dr. Ali Awni, أولاً it was such a pleasure to talk to you yesterday and make sure that you're okay والحمد لله إن كل حاجة تمام so far. As we discussed yesterday, this is again, welcome to my humble home, a very informal setting to my unilateral production of cause and effect.
Dear Ashraf, pleasure to be part of Cause and Effect. I love your idea of recording actually from a casual setting, from the comfort of home. So despite the corona, we will manage to have an interesting conversation, inshallah. Thank you.
طبعا, one of the first things that I would like to ask you is how's the AUC? I mean, as a professor at the AUC, how has Corona impacted the dynamics of one of the, if not the leading university in Egypt? From your perspective, of course. I mean, what has changed? What's happening? How are people coping within the organization itself, as staff, more so than students?
Well, first, I don't have access to my office at the AUC unless it's really an emergency, so we're really staying home. Now, we converted everything to online. So we're using Zoom for everything, for classes, for meetings, for webinars, even things that requires a physical delivery is done only once a week. I think we've done it in a reasonably good way. Initially, we were trying to sort of struggle a little bit with how do you teach 100% online. We're spending lots of time about discussing how we're going to assess the students. We give exams online, but overall, it has been a very interesting experience for us that I think even in the after Corona times would be very beneficial for us. The purpose of universities is to create knowledge and disseminate knowledge, and most of this is actually very conducive to be done online. Now, I still miss myself, and many of my colleagues will still miss the physical face-to-face classes, but I think we could use this even in the afterwards, that the lecturing is recorded before, and we spend the class time for more beneficial discussions and conversations.
My second question to you, Dr. Ali, is how are you coping? I mean, as a professor, somebody that your job is really to interact with people and give lectures and attend conferences and speak at conferences. So it's a very interactive job per se. So how are you working from home? What are the dynamics of working from home? What are you doing? How are you spending this time? Quarantine or في الحظر نفسه يعني. So how are you dealing and coping within that context?
Now, initially it was hard, like for everybody else. But then you'll find that actually by being confined to home most of your time, it's an opportunity. It gives you put you in a state of solitude, gives you a chance to sort of recharge. It's actually an excellent opportunity to spend more time with the family. And so we watch movies together, we prepare meals together, we clean house, wash dishes together. When you're staying at home, it gives you time to contemplate what's next. It gives you a chance to sort of reflect on things that in the rut or rush for everyday life, in normal situation before the confinement, you didn't have time to sort of do it. So from a positive side, I think we're coping fine. And I think we get lots of lessons that we're going to take forward with us when this thing is behind us.
The third question that I have, and of course being one of the prominent economic and economic trade experts in Egypt, how are you seeing a world post-Corona? I know it's a very, very general question. It's a very sort of non-defined in terms of parameters of when Corona is going to be done and what are we going to do. But how do you see, I mean, let's say within the next 3, 4, 5 months, 12 months, that we finally we got rid of the cause per se. So what's going to be the post effect of Corona in a global context, and even if we can define a bit on how you can see Egypt?
This is a very hard question, and it's basically, whatever I'm going to say, it's speculations. Some of it are probably intelligent guesses that probably will happen with a very high probability. But in general, the speculation, we're talking really about depressed economies, we're talking about harsh societies, we're talking about confused politicians. And this is what's going to happen right away in the aftermath. People are talking about more localization. So we're going to talk about redesigning of the global value chains. They're going to become more local. People are going to produce more items locally. You will have an emergence of new players in the form, even new countries or new players. And the focus is going to be more on agility and resilience. Perhaps the price is going to take maybe a second priority. Interestingly enough, I mean, some people are talking about it, but we could be observing a new world order. I mean, if you look historically, after World War II, we had the major meeting, which was the Bretton Woods, and from the Bretton Woods, it was determined the new financial and monetary order of the world. The IMF and the World Bank were created. And also the UN started after the World War II. So we're talking about the whole world order happened after a major disruption, which was World War II. Now, would Corona actually become in a similar level like World War II? Well, nobody knows. But probably it will be, if it's not the same magnitude, but it's going to be close. It managed to show fragility on all our systems. I mean, it's interesting, even not just the developing countries, even developed countries were very fragile in the face of Corona. So part of the things we expect to see going forward, and again, my interest is in the area of social impact, because I'm heading the Gerhart Center for Philanthropy, Civic Engagement and Responsible Business. You would expect social disruptions across. And we're not talking about revolutions in a Democratic Republic of Congo or some third world country. I mean, I personally I'm not going to be surprised if we see different forms of revolutions and in developed countries. But anyway, all is speculative, let's wait and see. Now, the thing that is pretty much sure is that we're going to have more issues around business and human rights. Businesses will try to take advantage of their labor, of society at large, to try to make a benefit. And most likely, some of the governments will give a blind eye or look the other side on the pretext of not hampering economic growth. Inequality is going to increase. I mean, everybody's talking about online. Just think about it. I mean, online favors the knowledge worker. So there is a built-in inequality there. You're going to have few people who can actually make better salaries because they have more educated, they can do knowledge type of work, that they can do it anywhere. But the majority of people are not going to be able to do this. So the inequality is going to increase. Now, the interesting thing also, we've recognized that there is a trend toward autocratization and totalitarianism. I mean, there are clear examples in developing countries and developed countries. Now, is that going to continue? Perhaps not. I mean, some people are talking about the need for new forms of governance, which is more bottom up. Bottom up, we're talking about stronger roles of communities, stronger roles of grassroots innovation. This is more of a localization. I mean, even in a very centralized countries, you will find more and more localization and giving more roles to community to take care of what they need. Now, we at the Gerhart Center recognize that it's interesting to start having a conversation around what is after. So what we're going to try to have a webinar series. We're going to bring people to talk about business and human rights, about governance, about communities, about grassroots innovations, about democratizing economy. I mean, topics that were not really mainstream before the corona, but are my expectation that they're going to become more relevant in the aftermath of the corona. Now, let me end on a positive note. It's interesting to see that when we gave Earth a few weeks of a reprise or a break from intense human activities, nature is recouping, is recovering. I mean, I hear it. I was talking with a friend from India, and he was telling me that in the big city he's living in, the children would hear the sound of birds for the first time. The skies, you can see the stars at night. I mean, a few days ago we had the full moon. It was spectacular. We haven't seen this for ages. I mean, nature is actually recovering. And I think we owe it to ourselves that when we get back to whatever you call it, a normal, a new normal, that we do it in a sustainable way for the future generation. Thank you.
Ali, take care, stay home, stay safe.